going to say welcome to everyone. Welcome to Avery Dennison's, we call it Bottling Brilliance, Mastering Labeling Challenges from Line to Shelf. We will explore innovations, trends, and bottling challenges, and the stories that's transforming labels in the packaging industry. I'm Senior Product Manager at Avery Dennison. How many of you know Avery Dennison? Just a quick show of hands. Okay. All right then. So we're proudly celebrating our 90th year. Our founder, Stan Avery, is the first one who came up with self-adhesive, pressure-sensitive labels. We're a global leader of material science and digital identification solutions, and we continue to push boundaries to solve complex challenges and unlock new possibilities. Okay? Along with me today, we have three incredible panelists. First, we have Carlos Barandas, who is our business development manager. He goes out into the market. He talks to brands. He works with brands. He wants to understand from a brand's perspective, kind of like what are the needs, what are the gaps, what are they seeing, trends and stuff like that. He also talked to designers. And so same thing, trying to understand kind of like what trends are they responding to, and kind of like who are they working with and how we can help. We also have Enrique, Yrigoyen. Did I say it right? Close enough?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay. He is one of our technical leaders. So when we're working with converters and brands on their bottling lines, he goes out when there's issues and helps them come up with solutions. And then we have Jana Braun, who actually manages a team of tech leaders and RTMs who kind of do a little bit of going out and sourcing product for specific folks who kind of like want a one-off, but they also work with a team kind of like Enrique does and go out and figure out kind of like what are the challenges that folks are facing, and they help them solve them. Great. And once again, I'm the product manager. I'm the one who comes up with and work with different sourcing partners to bring in papers and other things, and work with our R&D for adhesives to come up with the challenges that hit both wine and spirits. Okay? I think we had a little bit of a show, but we've gotten a couple more people in. Just by a show of hands, who's in the designing packaging part? Distilleries? Cool. I think we have a lot of good information that we can talk to you about. Any converters? Printers? No? Okay. All right. So let's get started. I'm going to put Carlos on the spot first and ask him, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in spirits?
I feel like this is always a good conversational starters. A lot of the trends that we keep hearing and keep coming up is, from the data, is mindful consumption, right? Consumers are being driven and being impactful with the way that they're spending their money, right? Does the brand mean something to me? And then another trend we are seeing is premiumization, right? We keep talking, although the CAGR, so the compound annual growth indicators indicate a flat growth for some of the categories, spirit and wine, premiumization is actually tracking up. So people are being more impactful and more mindful with their money, and so they're driving that price of consumption up, which is cool. Again, CAGRs are flat. We're also seeing alternative competitors. So back in the day, we used to have beer and spirits and wine as the main competitors. Now you have other categories that are competing for this recreational space, right? So you have more things on top of the mind of the consumer. So I guess these are like general trends. We can dive deeper as a conversation.
Agreed. Well, so we also know that a lot of the brands are trying to stand out on the shelf because you only have so much time to capture that consumer's attention. And along with some of the factors that are hitting the market, we know design is a huge factor with helping them stand out on the shelf. Can you talk about some of the recent design trends that you've been seeing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we could talk about, in terms of premiumization, I guess that's the main one, and also kind of touches on the label and how do you create, those 15 seconds on the shelf to become, to speak to a consumer and to stand out in this space. And we have thicker papers. We talk a lot about embossing techniques and how they impact, obviously, the label that goes on the bottle. Metals, bottle shapes, textured bottles, right? And so, obviously, I guess we'll go deeper into it and some of the limitations for some of that application strategy. But I guess premiumization in the spec, in the paper that you choose, in the way that you apply the label really speaks, because you only truly have those 15 seconds, right? When people are looking through, and if you've seen a shelf of brands, right? Like there's hundreds of them, and you want to stand out. And then past that, you want to grab the bottle and you want to feel, and again, you want to create an implication. And you can ultimately do that with the spec, with the paper you choose.
So we have quite a few design folks out here. Does that resonate with you? Are your customers asking, are the brands asking you for some of these thicker papers and embossing and stuff like that? Are there anything specific that you see trending that Carlos didn't talk about?
Yeah. So one of the pieces that eventually we would talk about is how do you embed technology into the label, right? So like how QR codes, RFID, authentication, security is part of that conversation. But I guess it's more part of a conversation of super premium than it is about an everyday bottle of whiskey or spirit, right? But that's a cool insight.
Are there any other ones that you're seeing in the market? Okay. So Carlos, I'm going to stay with you for a second. What are some of the other trends that's out there that I know that we pay attention to from our portfolio, but our customers are asking us for?
Yeah, it's a great follow-up to this one, right? Because technology is part of it, right? Like I see there's a movement in Europe about nutritional values and the QR code and the impact. There's a lot of conversation around, the UPC substitution for the QR code. And I guess brands are now moving in the direction of applying a QR code to their label. But what does that mean? It takes space away from your label. Is the application correct? So like this is a lot of the conversation, although I do see this more. RFID and all that stuff is more of a premium segment. You also see a lot of conversation around sustainability, right? PCW, which is post-consumer waste. How do we become sustainable and still premium, right? How do you get that application look and that label look? Again, organic materials is also a way to be sustainable, right? So like, which substrate, which way to drive sustainability? That's a lot of the conversation, a lot of the trends that are happening now.
From some of the brands that are out there, some of the distillers, is sustainability a big thing for you in your packaging? You can just nod, yay, nay, not really. Okay.
I think it's a really good way, though. Carlos brought it up that people ask us, how do we make it more sustainable? So really, when you're looking at paper stocks, it's that post-consumer waste in that face stock that gives you that sustainability, yet keeps your label and your brand looking similar to what a standard label looks like. So you can incorporate it into that label construction itself and have a story around that. So I think it is a really interesting or a really trending way that we're seeing people try to build sustainability into the label.
That's a great note. And a lot of the conversation when we're talking to designers, like how do you make it premium and sustainable? And it's a great call out. The specs, the paper labels that we have, you can definitely see that, right? They're premium and they're sustainable from the PCW standpoint.
So a lot of questions we get are, when I'm starting with a new brand, and I'm sure some of the design folks get this, what are some of the things we should pay attention to? So Jana, if someone's starting with a new brand, what are some of the things and questions they should be asking themselves?
Yeah, for the label, it's a living type of material, right? Because paper itself can move based on moisture content. It's a living organism. So we really look at what environment the material is going to go in, whether it's from the end use. Is somebody going to put it in a refrigerator or a freezer and there's condensation, or is it, at the party, it's going to go in an ice bucket. So you still want to have your label on the container. And so a lot of those environmental conditions go into the way that we look at labels. Also, when you go upstream a little bit, how is it going to be put onto the bottle? Hand applied, the environment, auto apply. All those go into the way we help design the material for that particular application. So we're very application and adhesive centric on what we're doing with the label, but all those different aspects of how is it actually going to be used in the particular application go into how we recommend a label. And there's all other, different kinds, for the design aspect is what kind of shading or color do you want to the label, and what do we have to offset, the way the printer is going to take that and make it into the label design that you have. So everything you can think of from a label standpoint, we're thinking ahead on how is that going to be used in that particular application.
Just to add, important, I think, is how the label is going to be printed, what kind of embellishment you want, because there are folks actually would like to see like very texturized, right? Or they want to get like very bright, and they use hot stamping, cut stamping, and all that. So that's important too when you're deciding the material. Usually for heavy embossing, you go with a thicker paper. Thinner paper, when you're trying to emboss, it actually creates more trouble. And generally speaking, actually, paper that has no coating, it's like, like natural bond paper look like, it's better to emboss than a very glossy material.
We've seen it all. So a good segue. So Enrique, we talked about the papers and some of the things that you should look at for that. But from an adhesive standpoint, what are some of the things that we should pay attention to?
Sure. The first thing I usually try to look at it is the environment on the bottling line, what equipment is available, right? And other than hand apply, and the nature of the glass, the bottle, and obviously what is the product or liquid is inside. For you folks, usually we are going to talk spirits. Comes at room temperature. That piece saves us a little bit of a hurdle there, because if we are doing like sparkling wine and all that, that's a different issue. The environment itself, people say, I'm just labeling a room temperature. Yeah. But all of a sudden we are in winter time or rainy season and it gets chill, and we start getting condensation on the bottle. So that's a problem. That becomes a problem. So look for any condensation on the bottle, temperature. Try to keep it actually at close to possible to real room temperature, like 70s. When you go too low, around 50s, and then there is wet outside, it gets a little bit ugly in terms of applying the label. Equipment, it's more in terms of being able to first, when you're labeling a bottle, it's very difficult to see where the seams are. Generally speaking, on the labelers, if the labeler doesn't have like a reader, so you have to play around and make sure you don't apply the label on the seam, which might become a problem. So that's one thing. The other, obviously, is the application, the wipers. Folks might like to have rollers and brushes. We do prefer really wipers or squeegees, because they actually apply better pressure and they squeeze out the air, which might become bubbles and other issues down the road, like wrinkles, bubbles, and so forth. So I will look on that. And finally, the glass, probably you all guys know that, but just to check the roundness on the bottle to make sure we don't have a lot of bumps, because bumps will become a challenge for a label. Might have some bubbling and so forth.
It seems silly, but it's called pressure sensitive because you have to have that pressure to apply it to the label. That's kind of the secret behind it. So it's so true that when you have an oblong bottle, it just makes it more difficult for those brushers or wipers to actually get full contact for that label to stick to that bottle. So it's kind of funny that people talk about PS, but they just want it to throw it down and it sticks, and it really does need that pressure for it to be able to adhere to that container.
There's one thing I would like to add too is when you are working with glass, every single bottle glass should come with it, or they might come with a coating. It's the nature of the biz, right? It's to protect the glass so it doesn't crack and it's transported. Depending on the coating and the amount of coating, that might be a problem for pressure sensitive. And in general, well, glue applied not that much, but pressure sensitive because you need the adhesive to be in contact with the glass. And those coatings sometimes might be a little bit too thick. And there you apply the label on the coating and it's not sticking, and you can peel off the label. Hey, what's going on here, right? So those coatings are sometimes a bit difficult to deal with it. And there's limitations on the bottling line, but the best is really try to get is from your supplier a better wash on the bottles, and make sure if you have the issue there, you can play around a little bit if you have the ability to do so, and it's possibility to win is to wash the bottle or at least rinse the bottle a little bit and then use air knives to take the moisture out. Again, it's more complex, but it's quite standard. That
We're throwing a lot of information on it, you guys. When you're working, what are some of the challenges that you're running into? Because I have these technical folks here, so if you're running into challenges or if you had a wish list of things that you kind of wanted to know about, feel free to ask. Let's do some back and forth. Are there things you're seeing?
Generally speaking, the adhesives we have like C2010 that will work probably on severe conditions like a little bit more moisture and low temperature, but it also depends on the expectations you might have. There are some folks actually would like to have the ability to peel off the label if it's misapplied, right? And not to save the label, but to save the bottle, which is cost really the money. So that calls that open time or repositionability. And we have adhesives like the 8020 gives you wider open time. We're talking 30, 40 minutes. The other guy, the C2010, probably won't give you the open time, but it's going to stick really nice, especially when you are labeling something that comes already cold on the bottle, and that might create condensation. Just keep in mind, when you have high temperature and high humidity, it's bad for us. We feel it like, oh my God.
So not necessarily an adhesive on if it's a red wine or a white wine. It's more about your expectations of what you want with your label and where it's going.
Yep.
Yes, no, that is true. Yep. Go ahead.
No, you got the answer right there.
No. Well, it's just more of if we know it's going into a refrigerator, if we know it's going into an ice bucket, there's expectations. We know that brands want it to look good dry, and we know they want that label to look good wet. But more than anything, we know they want the label to stay on. And so when we create adhesives for that, we do a lot of testing before we even launch it to make sure that the adhesive will stay on. So what he was talking about before, we have one adhesive that is repositionable, that still works in the ice bucket, but with all of these premium materials that keep coming up, how heavy some of them are, we have the adhesive he was talking about, Z2010, that will hold on. It goes on, and it's not supposed to come off. We do a lot of testing around those. Anything else? Anything that you're running into that you've always wondered? I'm throwing it at you, Carlin.
Yeah. So the cool thing about being a designer and obviously building a relationship with me, which we will do after this, I can get you a handy dandy sample book and you can have, our portfolio in your hand and kind of go through them. But we do have, like what I was mentioning, the organic materials. We do have a stone face spec, right? Which is made out of stone. We have also cotton. We have the other substrates. We can talk deeper into it, but there is options within the book. And then depending obviously on the volume and the size of the project, there is, could you potentially do a specific project, a specific spec for it, right? So yeah, I mean, we can talk after the show, but there is definitely a stone face in the portfolio.
I'm going to actually throw over to Jana too, because we get requests like this all the time. And I know Carlos said depending on the volume, but Jana's team actually will work with folks also.
Yeah, our teams, that's the fun part of our job, right? We're label nerds. And so we like to create those unique, strange, odd constructions, the farther out there that we can try to make, the happier we are. Actually, the stone paper or the stone face was one of my team was able to create that for customers to bring in that natural element into the design. And so it made the portfolio now. So, but yeah, that's what we get to do. And so what we do is we have a series of suppliers that we work with. We don't make our own face stocks. We don't make our own paper face stocks, but we have a series of suppliers we work with to sample those materials, and we'll work with the converter and the brands to figure out which one is the best choice for the application, and we'll bring that in and we'll run our trials to submit to the customers for printing and to the brands for evaluation. So yeah, we're happy and always looking forward to bringing in those new constructions. I think one of the new ones we're looking at is flock, right? So we have some flock material that we're looking at now too that has that texture, to it.
He's calling it flock. I aged myself when I said velour.
It's velour, so yeah, sorry, velour.
Or velvet.
Velvet.
Yeah, so it's those type of things. I mean, we of course there's some limitations because we manufacture, but not very many. I mean, we figure out how to run. We have in the portfolio still like wood veneer. We have wood veneer material. So even though it is truly wood product, we are able to convert it into a roll form, which, how often can you take a piece of wood and wrap it up? So it's fun. The team that I have, it's very fun. We get to create those unique designs for applications.
Now she said all of that.
And you can actually use different adhesives. So that's the beauty. You can have that specific material. You can put a adhesive better for your application. So that's very neat.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's always a three-way conversation, right? So you guys brand the printer you guys are working with, and then us, we share information.
Well, where I was going to go with that, because she talked about some of those unique things, and we talked about thicker papers before. Jana, one of the things that I see in spirits all the time are the neck labels, and then the labels going across like when you walk down the aisle now, you're seeing more and more things that are making people stand up. What are some of our issues that we run into with that?
Yeah, so neck labels, they create a little bit of a challenge because you are trying to take a piece of paper and wrap it around a small diameter, and that usually is more challenging. So we have our neck label portfolio that it's a little bit thinner, still can look like the label on the front of the bottle, but might be a little thinner in caliper, so you can get that diameter that paper to go around the diameter. Of course, it still takes great pressure to make sure that it's going to form well around the label, but it'll keep it from flagging, where you have the label lift on the edges, by just taking a little thinner of the material to be able to do it on our adhesives. Man, this is in the way. So yeah, we have a neck label portfolio that there's a few different products on there, and then the printer and our printers and converters can print it in different ways to make it match the label that you have below. So it's a more of a unique construction, I would say, because you have to be able to get that label to adhere when you're trying to wrap it around a small diameter.
So the watch out is if you were in our portfolio and you liked 80-pound cotton and you want to stick it around the neck, all you're asking for is a fight. That's all you're asking for, because it's going to fight to go back flat. So it's really important to understand kind of like aesthetically how you want it to look and how we can marry some papers together to get the look that you want.
Embellishment might not be the same for a neck label as the body label. For example, you cannot probably do the same embossing on a body label versus the neck label, because actually that deteriorates a little bit more the adhesion, and then you have the challenge with a tight mandrel. And the other piece I always look at it is the cork and the capsule that goes on top of the label, because it's on top of the bottle, because the label is going to stick to the bottle and to that actually capsule. And those capsules made usually of some kind of foil, but they might put some coatings on there. And you're saying, hey, the label is adhering really nice to the glass, but not to the capsule. And that's usually what the struggle is. So it's just to make sure that we look at it, those potential issues there, so we don't get into the trouble.
That's also part of why you build, a good relationship with your suppliers and your printer, and you have open conversation. It makes it faster to kind of get ahead of some of these issues that come your way. And that's, one of the learnings also of being out there, just streamlining conversations with us probably get you this information faster than just, looking at the problem.
Because when I first started, and sometimes when we get claims, we call Enrique in, and Enrique will look at a heavily embossed label, and then he looks at us like, well, why you let them do that? Because the embossings, when it goes across the edges, It's just inviting water in. So we love embossings. We love labels stand out. Just be careful of what you do with your edges, right, Enrique?
Yeah, usually you leave at least 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch if you would, without embossing. Any embossing on any label. So you don't have the issue where moisture or air comes through and then start to actually see the lifting on the labels. So where is this coming from? Wasn't there when we labeled this thing? What is happening now? 3 weeks later. So it's when you have to start looking this and other potential concerns there.
Now, see, as you're starting off and you're looking at different things, there's a lot of things that come into play. We work with printers all the time just to make sure all these things come out when you're talking. Carlos is out talking to agencies and designers, just bringing a lot of these things to forth as they're doing some of the designing. Carlos, when you look at some of the things that we have in our portfolio, what are some of the things that we have been bringing out to help address some of these situations?
I love this question. Everything. So we have a lot of collections within the portfolio. We have our Luminous collection, which is a lot of the shiny, metallical. The idea is, how can we help you guys do more with less, right? How can the paper speak through also and be part of the design story? And here you have 3 collections that really speak to that. One is Luminous, which is very metallic, very shiny, a lot of that. We have our black papers, and again, these are just pure black specs that will help you with when you're cutting your labels. You don't have that streak of white at the end, right? So it just makes it for a more of a premium feel and look. And then we have our Sensorial, which I think here is where a lot of the beauty comes in, right? Where you have a lot of patterns, a lot of like shapes, a lot of seals also, because once that label is placed on, you grab it, it just gives you a premium feel. Besides this conversation, we also have, PCW and organic materials. Again, to this note, right? How do you incorporate a level of sustainability and add that also to your story, right? Start with how can the story help? How can the paper and how can the label also help tell the story of the label, right? So PCW, organic. I'll show you guys at the end the stone face, the 80-pound cotton, which is a very premium feel. It's a tree-free, and it's also organic. So a lot of these are part of the conversation nowadays, and how do we incorporate also this into the marketing and the label story, and how does it feed into it, right? So this is, I'm going deep.
No, your passion is coming through. So I could actually, you already answered the question, so now I'm going to ask Jana, what is the most exciting aspect of working in the label industry right now?
Most exciting aspect? Well, we're all label nerds, as you can probably tell, right? So every day is a new material or new application that we're trying to figure out how to put a pressure-sensitive label on. So for me, it's that trying to solve a problem with our converting partners, with our brand partners, and being able to find that solution to make the bottle talk to the experience that you're trying to have with that end user or that customer. So for me, it's every day we have these new applications that we get to work on. So that's my everyday life it's never the same one day to the next, but it's great.
Enrique?
Well, I will say I learn every single day I go to the bottling line. Folks like you, you see the final product, and you see the label being applied, and you come with ideas right there and say, hey, have you been thinking about doing this to the label or even changing the material? It's going to look probably better. They look on you like, really? Now you tell me that? But, there is always I've been seeing, especially on the wine industry, new redesigns, and folks are actually getting wider open. On the West, there is quite a bit of push for sustainability, and that comes not only on the label but also on the glass. So those factors are always exciting and interesting.
For me, it's always what's new. So I feel like, especially for spirits in this last year, it's been, can you find me some agave paper? And then I started talking to suppliers about agave paper. And then I found out there's the blue agave and there's the green agave. And then I'm like, we have a sustainable supply of green agave. But no, everybody wants the blue. It's not worth doing it unless we can get it with the blue agave. So we will work with Jana's team. We will call suppliers. We will find stuff. But sometimes I might have to say, you wanted apple, but I can only put 5% of apple in the paper because it's too mushy if we do over 5%. Those are the different kind of conversations, and they're kind of cool because it's like things you never thought about. But we will have those conversations on the behalf of the designers, on the brands, just even all of our partners to talk through some of that kind of stuff. Okay. Carlos, just kind of, was there a hand up? They're all looking at me. It's time for the product manager to come to the mic again. Yeah. So MOQs is something that we all address, right? So you get them from us, but we also get them from our suppliers too. So with some of the interesting thing is with a lot of the uniques, a lot of times they actually do have lower MOQs, especially if they're like expensive things. We have something in there that's kind of like a hammered metal paper, and I can get those at the yards. So it's very different, working with the different suppliers. But what we're trying to do is, because we know it's spirits and there's a lot of smaller brands on the spirit side, we're trying to introduce more ready with programs where it's just available on 12 inches or 13 inches by certain length. We're trying to introduce more and more of those because we know that's important to spirits. So it's one of those where you talk to your converter. If you have contact with Carlos, you talk to Carlos, and then we will work with supplier on trying to figure out if we can or cannot. Because sometimes we do have some suppliers who at the last moment, like even just to be honest, this year, as everybody tries to consolidate and do different things, some of them are raising their MOQs, and then we remind them of our partnership and how we both want to grow in this industry, and we change. So just keep the information coming to us, and we will work with suppliers to do that kind of stuff. So that's actually where I was going to go with Carlos about how we work the whole chain, just to make sure that we're all talking to each other and working together.
Yeah, again, it's about streamlining communication, right? Like it's, how can we bring insights from you guys to try to better our products? How can we bring information to you guys to kind of, the breadth of the portfolio? How can we, share some knowledge? And again, also when you're working with your printer, it's a lot of what we do is understanding what the capabilities of the printer are, talking to them, telling them what you're trying to do, and kind of having this 3-way, 4-way conversation with your suppliers. So I think that's a big, big win for all of us, especially as we evolve in the market into like, it's not transactional as much anymore. It's more of a partnership nowadays.
Okay. I'm going to open the floor up to see if there are any more questions. No one's running into other issues. Well, it's kind of interesting that you were talking about technology. RFID, how are your customers starting to try to engage with consumers? We also run into it with brands that are global, because if you're exporting over to Europe has a lot of guidelines with that. We're seeing more QR codes than we are seeing anything else, where either they're engaging with their consumers for promotions or they're doing nutritional information on that. So we've talked to some designers who said they automatically just design with QR codes in mind. We keep hearing nutritional information is coming to North America. It's already big in Europe, but we keep hearing. So it's going to be interesting to watch how some of the different regulations and different things changes. Because as Enrique was saying, when you're on the West Coast, we know Oregon and we know California keep changing regulations. So folks are starting to talk about a wash-off adhesive, something that washes off so that you can reuse the bottle. So we're working on things like that too. So, everything keeps changing, and we want to make sure we're getting that insight so we can involve our portfolio also. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? We gave a lot of information to you today, and I know a little bit of it was overwhelming. Just know we're here if you ever wanted to go deeper, and sometimes you don't know what you need until you're in the middle of it. And then you're like, okay, lifts, why am I getting this? What's going on? Just know that we have a whole team to answer some of those questions.
We're here to help and partner with you. I mean, that's what we've done for years and years and years. So 90 years for Avery, Dennison. So yeah, you guys have been great.
Yeah.
I don't even know what time it is. Is it?
No, we're at 10:40. So 5 minutes. If you have any other questions or you want to come up and talk to anyone, we're here. We'll come down off the stage. We have a couple of our books here. And then we also have our cards here too, also, if you want to talk to any of us too. So we thank you for coming and taking some time out of your schedule today to come and talk to us. One of the things, as Carlos has been out talking to more distillers, brands, is that we're finding out that their packaging lines have lots of questions. So that's kind of why we kind of tailored this to kind of the things that you run into.
Yeah. And
Okay.
we can send samples. I would love to always shut up some time and talk to you guys and build relationships. Ultimately, today is not a problem, but in 6 months or a year, or you're not working on a project today, or in 6 months and a year, we're always here. I have my business cards if anybody wants to take one. We have a couple of books here, but if you want one, we can also ship them over. We also do a good job at launching a lot of interactive stuff. So like data, market data, our inspirational, this is more for design community, our inspirational envelopes where it kind of gives you full labels of what we do. The website's also a good way to kind of communicate and all that stuff with us. But yeah, again, just figuring out a way how we can build a relationship and kind of keep you guys informed. And also, learn more from you and like, hey, what's the market talking? What are you seeing that we can, on the back end try to build and develop?
So if you lose our cards, if you can't remember it in 6 months from now, you go, hey, I went to a show with Avery, Dennison. If you go to the website, there's a whole wine and spirits section. If you put an inquiry in, one of us will call you. So we're always there. I may win the lottery, so I may not be there because it's like 800 million now. So I'm not making any promises with that. But that being said, we're available. So we're going to come off the stage. If you have any questions or anything else like that, feel free to walk up to us. But if not, we thank you for coming to visit us and spending time with us.
And talking labels.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.